My name is Isabella Chen, and I am 24 years old. When my grandfather passed away from cancer, my family expected to inherit his $32 million fortune. They had always treated me like the family disappointment, the quiet, worthless psychology major who would never amount to anything. So when his lawyer read the will, the entire room went silent. My grandfather left everything, every single dollar, to me. My uncle demanded I sign it over immediately. I said no. That night, they threw me out of their house. The next morning, they showed up at my grandfather's estate to evict me. But they stopped dead in their tracks when they saw who was standing right beside me. Before I tell you exactly what happened in that lawyer's office and who was standing with me on that doorstep, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And if you have ever felt underestimated or betrayed by the very people who should have supported you, hit that like button and subscribe. This story is about what happens when the family outcast finally gets the keys to the kingdom. The air in Mr. Benjamin Foster's oak-paneled office felt suffocating. I sat in a small chair in the corner, trying to make myself invisible. My cheap blazer from Target felt rough against my skin. My family sat in the front row like they owned the place. My uncle Robert Chen, 58 years old, impatiently drummed his fingers on his expensive briefcase. My Aunt Catherine, 55, dabbed at her perfectly dry eyes with a designer tissue, her diamond earrings catching the light. My older cousin Jason, the 32-year-old golden boy, was whispering to his wife Amanda. Amanda, 30, let out an exaggerated sigh. She was a blonde socialite who had married into our Asian American family's perceived wealth with ruthless ambition. I hope this is quick, she whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. We have dinner reservations at the Capitol Grill. I'm not missing that reservation. Jason just chuckled and squeezed her hand. Just a formality, babe. Just signing the papers. Mr. Foster finally entered. He was a distinguished man in his 70s, my grandfather's longtime friend and attorney. He commanded immediate respect. We are here, he began, his voice deep and measured, to execute the final will and testament of Henry Chen. My aunt produced a single theatrical sniffle. He was such a generous, loving man. He cared so much about family. My uncle cut her off. Let's get to the business, Benjamin. We all know he was generous. The real estate portfolio, the investments, the business holdings. He left everything to me and Jason to continue the Chen family legacy. Just read that part so we can move on. Catherine chimed in, glancing back at me with fake sympathy. Oh, Isabella, sweetie, don't worry. We'll take care of you. We can probably find you a nice little studio apartment somewhere. You'll be just fine. Taken care of. It was always their code for keeping me in my place. Mr. Foster stared hard at my uncle. Actually, Robert, he was very specific about his intentions. He put on his reading glasses and opened the thick document. After careful consideration, he read, I bequeath my entire estate, including all real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and business interests valued at approximately $32 million. The drumming stopped. The room held its breath. To the only person I trust to honor my true values and not just my wealth, my granddaughter Isabella Chen. All of it. Silence. It was a deafening, violent silence. Clatter. Amanda's designer purse slipped from her lap and hit the hardwood floor. I watched in slow motion as my cousin Jason's confident face turned ghost white. 32 million, he stammered, choking on the words. That's impossible. My Aunt Catherine shrieked, her voice shattering the facade of the grieving family member. The fake tears were gone, replaced by pure venom. There's been a mistake, Benjamin. You read it wrong. That's impossible. She whipped her head around to face me, her eyes burning with disgust I'd known my entire life. Isabella, the girl with the useless psychology degree. She can't even hold down a part-time job. She doesn't even have her own car. That's because you never let me get one, I whispered, but no one heard me. What does she, Catherine spat, know about managing money? Silence, Catherine, Robert roared. He slammed his hand on the mahogany table. The water glasses rattled. His entire body shook with rage. He stood up, towering over me, his face turning a dangerous shade of red. Benjamin, what is this nonsense? The old man was losing his mind. He wasn't thinking clearly. We're contesting this will immediately. I assure you. Mr. Foster's voice was ice cold. Mr. Chen was completely lucid when he signed this. We have medical certifications and video documentation of the entire signing process. My uncle's head snapped toward me. His eyes, small and furious, pinned me to my chair. Isabella, what did you do? What lies did you tell him? I didn't do anything, I managed to say, my voice barely audible. All those years, my Aunt Catherine hissed, her fake grief replaced by pure hatred. All those years we supported you through college, let you live in our house when you couldn't afford rent. I told Robert to cut you off, make you learn responsibility. But no, you had to be family. You owe us everything. You hear me? You're just a girl. The business empire belongs to Jason. Exactly, Isabella, Jason chimed in, trying to sound reasonable. But his greed was shining in his eyes. Let's all just calm down. Obviously, Grandpa wanted us to help you manage this. My startup needs new funding. This is perfect timing. Amanda, having recovered her purse, was already checking her reflection. We just put a deposit down on the new Tesla, Isabella, she said, as if scolding a child. And I desperately need a new wardrobe for the charity galas. We can't be expected to cancel those commitments. They were already spending my money right in front of me. They didn't even pretend otherwise. My uncle pointed a thick finger at my face. Enough, Isabella. We will sign the papers to transfer every dollar into the family trust immediately. I will manage it as it was always meant to be. I looked at that finger. I looked at his furious face. I looked at my aunt's hateful sneer, my cousin's greedy smirk, my cousin-in-law's vapid entitlement. I felt the spine that my grandfather had so carefully nurtured over 24 years finally straighten. I took a deep breath. I looked my uncle dead in the eye. For the first time in my life, I didn't look away. No, the word was quiet, but it exploded in the room like a bomb. What? Robert's voice was a low growl. What did you say? Catherine shrieked, clutching her pearls. I said no, I repeated. My voice was louder now, clear and cold. It's my inheritance. Grandpa trusted me with it. I stood up, my legs shaking. But I stood. I am not handing it over to you. I paused and delivered the final blow, especially since I know exactly what you'll do with it. The color drained from my uncle's face. The anger was replaced, just for a second, by pure panic. He knew that I knew. He knew I'd seen the documents my grandfather had shown me. He knew I was aware his successful import business was hemorrhaging money, drowning in $1.8 million of debt. You, he whispered. You ungrateful. He lunged forward. His hand was raised, open and heavy, aimed right for my face. I flinched, bracing for the impact I knew so well. Robert. Mr. Foster's voice cracked like a whip. He was on his feet instantly, his large frame placing itself directly between me and my uncle. Do not lay a hand on my client. My uncle froze, his hand still in the air. This meeting, Mr. Foster said, his voice dropping to dangerous calm, is over. Get out of my office, all of you. He straightened his tie. Miss Chen will stay. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely sign the receipt for the taxi. Mr. Foster had offered me a ride in his BMW, but I refused. I couldn't let him see the cramped apartment I shared with 3 roommates. As the taxi pulled away from the gleaming downtown buildings, my uncle's face flashed in my mind. The rage in his eyes, his hand raised to strike me. It wasn't the first time he'd looked at me with that kind of hatred. A memory, sharp and painful, cut through the shock of the $32 million. I was 19 again, standing in their living room, clutching the acceptance letter. I got it, I had whispered, my voice trembling with joy. The full scholarship to Stanford for graduate school. My uncle hadn't even looked up from his newspaper. He'd just held out his hand. I gave him the letter. He read it, a sneer twisting his lips, and then slowly tore it in half, then quarters, then eighths. Chens are in business, he'd said, his voice cold. We don't waste time on feel-good psychology nonsense. I had run to my room, my heart completely shattered. The next morning, My grandfather had come to me. He sat on the edge of my bed and quietly placed an envelope in my hand. "Your uncle doesn't need to know about this," he said, his voice firm. "You go to school, Isabella. You go and you shine." He'd held my chin. "Your light is bright, little one. Don't you ever let them dim it." I leaned my head against the cool glass of the taxi window. I thought of him in the hospital just months ago. His hand felt so frail, but his grip was still strong. "Your silence has protected you, Isabella," he'd whispered, his voice raspy. "It has kept you safe, but you must know when it's time to stop hiding and start fighting." The taxi pulled up to the curb. I looked at the house where I'd grown up. I knew as I paid the driver that the time to fight had finally arrived. The taxi dropped me at the house where I'd lived since my parents died when I was 8. I paid the driver, my body numb, and walked up the familiar driveway. Then I stopped. My life was on the front lawn. Not my whole life, just my part of it. 2 battered suitcases, a cardboard box labeled books, and a large black garbage bag. I knew without looking that the bag was full of my clothes, just ripped from hangers and stuffed inside. It was all dumped on the grass, like trash waiting for pickup. For a moment, I couldn't process it. My mind searched for a logical reason. There must be a leak in my room. They're cleaning something. The front door swung open, and that weak hope died. My Aunt Catherine stood in the doorway. She wasn't crying. Her face was a mask of cold, hard satisfaction. She held a glass of wine in one hand, looking as calm as if she were hosting a book club. "Aunt Catherine," I whispered. My voice sounded strange. "What's going on? Why is my stuff out here?" Catherine took a slow, deliberate sip of her wine. "You made your choice," she said, her voice flat and emotionless. "You made it very clear in Mr. Foster's office. You chose money over your family." "That's not true," I said, my voice shaking. "He tried to hit me. You were trying to steal my inheritance." "You humiliated your uncle," she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "You humiliated this entire family in front of that lawyer. You are not the niece I raised." She looked me up and down, her lip curling in disgust. "In fact, you are not family at all anymore. We are done with you, Isabella." "Done with me?" The words felt like stones in my throat. "You can't just... You're my family. This is my home." "You are nothing to us," she spat. "And this is not your home, not for one more minute." "That's enough, Catherine." My Uncle Robert pushed past her. He was vibrating with controlled, terrifying rage. He wasn't holding wine. He was holding a thick stack of papers and a pen. "I'm going to give you one final chance," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "One last opportunity to fix this disaster you've created. One chance to be part of this family again." He shoved the papers toward my chest. I flinched, catching them before they fell. I didn't need to read the title. I knew what it was. A power of attorney, a complete transfer of assets. "You sign this right here, right now," he commanded, clicking the pen and thrusting it at me. "You sign everything over to the family trust. I will manage it the way it was supposed to be. You do that, and we can forget this disgusting little rebellion of yours." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You sign it or you get off my property." "This isn't just your property," I said, a tiny spark of defiance lighting up inside me. "Grandpa helped you with the down payment on this house. I know." His face was inches from mine. "Sign it or get out. You are not welcome here." "What's all the commotion?" My cousin Jason and his wife Amanda appeared in the doorway, crowding behind my aunt and uncle like eager vultures. "Oh, look," Amanda said, her voice a high-pitched, cruel laugh. She immediately pulled out her phone and started recording me. "It's the $32 million millionaire, and she's... Oh my God, look at her little bags. She's homeless." Jason snickered, crossing his arms, enjoying the show. "Looks like that psychology degree doesn't come with housing. Huh, Isabella? Real unfortunate." "Please," I whispered, tears of pure humiliation stinging my eyes. "Stop it. Just stop recording me." Amanda just zoomed in closer, capturing my face. "Oh, is she going to cry? What are you going to do now, Isabella? You've got all that money, but you've got no family, no friends, and nowhere to sleep tonight." She lowered the phone, a vicious smile on her face. "I wonder," she said to Jason, but loud enough for me to hear. "I wonder how much a $32 million nobody charges for a couch to sleep on." That's when I snapped. The humiliation, the years of being invisible, the sting of my uncle's almost slap. It all combined into a white-hot rage I had never felt before. The fear vanished, replaced by cold, hard clarity. This was it. This was the moment my grandfather had prepared me for. It was time to fight back. "A nobody?" I said. My voice was low, and it didn't shake. It was a voice I didn't recognize. Amanda's smile faltered. She stopped recording. "You want to talk about being nobody, Amanda?" I said, taking a step toward her. She instinctively stepped back. "You want to talk about money, Jason?" I turned to my cousin, who was no longer laughing. "Let's talk about the $150,000 you lost on crypto investments last month. The money you took from the family trust account. The one Grandpa specifically told you never to touch." Jason's face went completely white. He looked like he'd been punched. "What? What are you talking about?" he stammered. "I'm talking about the transfer to Coinbase, Jason. The one you tried to hide as a business expense." Grandpa and I saw it. He was so disappointed. My Aunt Catherine gasped. "You? You're lying. How would you know about that?" "Oh, I know a lot of things, Aunt Catherine," I said, turning my gaze to her. "I know that my entire life you told me I was irresponsible with money, that I was stupid, that I couldn't be trusted with anything." I took a step toward my uncle, who was watching me with new fear in his eyes. "And you, Uncle Robert," I said, my voice dropping. "You stand here acting like a king. You want to talk about my inheritance." I laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. "Let's talk about your debt. Let's talk about the $1.8 million you owe to Wells Fargo. The loan you took out by secretly using Grandpa's business as collateral without his permission. The payment that's due in 2 weeks. The payment you have no way of making." The silence on the porch was absolute. The only sound was traffic from blocks away. Robert's face was a mask of pure shock. The rage was gone, replaced by the terrified look of a man who had just been exposed. "How?" he whispered. "How did you know that?" "I've known for 8 months," I said, the truth feeling powerful on my tongue. "Grandpa showed me everything. He taught me how to read your financial statements. He taught me how to find the hidden accounts. He knew you were stealing from him. He knew you were a fraud. He knew you were planning to use his entire estate to cover your mistakes the second he was gone. You little spy," my uncle whispered, the blood rushing back to his face. "You and that manipulative old man. He protected his legacy," I said. "From you. That broke him. It wasn't a slap. It was faster." He lunged forward, not with an open palm, but with a closed fist. He grabbed a huge handful of my hair, yanking my head back so hard I screamed in pain. "You think you're so smart?" he roared, his face inches from mine, spit flying. "You think you've won?" He dragged me, stumbling off the porch onto the grass. "You have nothing," he screamed, standing over me like a madman. "You hear me? You have no one." I reached into my pocket for my phone, my fingers fumbling, needing to call Mr. Foster, needing to call someone. Robert saw it. He kicked the phone out of my hand. It skidded across the pavement. Before I could even cry out, he raised his heavy dress shoe and stomped down on it. Crunch! He stomped again and again, grinding the screen into fragments. "No family," he roared. "No phone, no one to help you." He pointed a shaking finger at me, a broken heap on his manicured lawn next to my garbage bag of clothes. "You want your $32 million, go get it. Let's see how you survive now, you ungrateful, worthless nothing." He turned, straightened his suit jacket, and walked back into the house. "Don't you ever come back here," he yelled. "You are dead to us." Jason and Amanda had vanished from the doorway. My aunt stood there for 1 second, her face a mixture of horror and, was that satisfaction? Then she closed the door. The deadbolt clicked shut. I was alone. The sun was setting. The air was getting cold. I was a $32 million heiress, and I was homeless, phoneless, and completely, utterly alone. I sat there on the cold grass for a long time, the shock making me numb. Then I started to tremble. The sobs came hard and painful, but through the tears a memory sparked. My grandfather. Your silence has protected you, Isabella. You must know when it's time to stop hiding and start fighting. And then another memory. Mr. Foster in his office just hours ago. He had handed me his card, thick and embossed. Miss Chen, he had said, if you need anything at all. I had stuffed it into my wallet. My phone was destroyed, but my wallet was still in my purse, which was still on my shoulder. I wiped my nose, my hands shaking. I got to my feet, my body aching. I grabbed my suitcases and the trash bag. I walked away from that house, the only home I had known since my parents died. I walked 3 blocks down the dark street until I saw the neon glow of a convenience store. I went inside and asked to use their phone. I pulled out my wallet, my fingers fumbling past my useless debit card. There it was, the thick, embossed card. Benjamin Foster, attorney at law, and his private cell number. I dialed the number, my heart pounding a new rhythm of fear and something else. Hope. The phone rang once, twice. A professional voice answered. Foster and Associates emergency line. I need to speak to Mr. Benjamin Foster, I stammered, my voice cracking. Please, it's an emergency. My name is Isabella Chen. There was a click. Not hold music, but an immediate transfer. Isabella. Mr. Foster's deep voice came on the line instantly. This was his personal line. Miss Chen, are you all right? Where are you? That's when I broke. The dam of adrenaline and shock burst, and a raw sob tore out of my throat. They did it, I cried, gripping the phone. They threw me out, Mr. Foster. They put my things on the lawn. My uncle, he destroyed my phone. He grabbed me. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end, followed by a silence so heavy it was frightening. Then he spoke, and his voice was no longer the calm, detached lawyer from the office. It was cold. It was hard. It was furious. I anticipated this might happen, he said, his voice a low growl. I hoped for your sake that Robert was not that much of a monster. I was wrong. He was all business. Isabella, I need you to listen to me carefully. Breathe. Tell me exactly where you are. What do you see around you? I'm at the 7-Eleven on Maple and 5th, I said, gasping for air. Next to the gas station. Maple and 5th. I know exactly where that is, he said. Do not move. Do not talk to anyone. Do not go anywhere. I am leaving my office right now. I am 8 minutes away from that corner. Do you understand me, Isabella? 8 minutes. Stay right there. The line went dead. I hung up the phone, my hand shaking so hard I could barely hold it. 8 minutes. It felt like 8 hours. I stood outside the convenience store, guarding my 2 suitcases and the pathetic black trash bag of my life. Every car that slowed down made my heart leap into my throat. I was terrified it was my uncle coming back to finish what he started. Then, exactly as he'd promised, headlights appeared around the corner. It wasn't a taxi. It wasn't a police car. A sleek, dark BMW sedan, so quiet it barely made a sound, pulled silently to the curb right in front of me. The car itself was a statement of power. It was everything my uncle's life pretended to be, but wasn't. The back window glided down silently. Mr. Foster was in the back seat, his face set like granite. Get in, Isabella, he said. The driver's door opened and a professional-looking woman in a dark suit got out. She didn't say a word. She simply walked over, picked up my 2 battered suitcases, and even grabbed the black trash bag with a dignity it didn't deserve. She placed them in the trunk, as if they were luxury luggage. I opened the heavy back door and slid onto the softest leather I had ever felt. The inside of the car was warm and smelled of rich leather and cedar. It smelled safe. Mr. Foster didn't say anything at first. He just reached into a small cooler in the console and handed me a cold bottle of water. Drink, he commanded. Your uncle has just made the biggest mistake of his life. The car pulled away from the curb, the convenience store and gas station disappearing behind us. Where are we going? I whispered. Not a hotel. Mr. Foster turned to me. The streetlights flashed across his face, and I saw a small, grim smile. Your grandfather was a brilliant man, Isabella. He was also deeply practical. He knew exactly who Robert was. He knew what your family was capable of. He paused, letting the words sink in as the car picked up speed, heading toward the most expensive part of the city. He didn't just leave you money, Isabella. He left you a sanctuary. He left you, he said, a fortress. We glided through the streets, the city lights blurring past the tinted windows. The silence inside the BMW was absolute, a heavy, safe blanket. It was a world away from the cold concrete I'd been sitting on just 20 minutes earlier. My shoulder throbbed where I'd fallen. My scalp still stung where my uncle had grabbed my hair. Mr. Foster, I whispered, I don't have anywhere to go. My bank accounts are all connected to my uncle's. He'll freeze them. He already destroyed my phone. I have nothing. You have $32 million, Miss Chen, he said, his voice calm and steady. But that is a problem for tomorrow. Tonight you need sanctuary. A hotel? I asked. No, he said simply. The car wasn't heading toward the cluster of hotels downtown. It was moving toward the quiet, tree-lined streets of the hills. This was where real money lived. We passed enormous gated estates set back hundreds of feet from the road. I knew this route. I knew it by heart. This is, I said, my heart suddenly pounding for a different reason. This is the way to Grandpa's house. It is, he confirmed. A cold dread washed over me. But we can't. My uncle thinks he controls the estate. He'll have the security codes. He'll just call the police and say I'm trespassing. He'll throw me out all over again. The car slowed, not at the main gates, but at a smaller, hidden service entrance. Mr. Foster turned to me in the dim light. Isabella, he said, his voice precise. Your uncle thinks he controls the estate. He thinks this house is part of the Chen family trust which he expected to manage. He is, as he is about most things, profoundly mistaken. My mind was racing, trying to catch up. What do you mean? Your grandfather was brilliant. He was also deeply pragmatic. He knew exactly who Robert was. He knew his greed. He knew his desperation. He paused. And he knew his business was failing. He knew about the $1.8 million loan. My head snapped up. You knew about that too? I am his lawyer. I knew everything, he said. 4 months ago, when your grandfather first discovered Robert had used his business as collateral without permission, he called me. He knew his health was declining. He said, Benjamin, I need to protect my real legacy. And his real legacy, Isabella, was you. Mr. Foster reached into his briefcase. He pulled out a thick leather folder. He didn't open it. He just placed it in my lap. That, he said, is a deed transfer. 4 months ago, your grandfather legally transferred 100% ownership of this property, the house, the land, and all its contents, directly into your name. It was signed, notarized, and recorded with the county. It was never part of the will. It was never part of any trust. It has been legally, irrevocably yours for 4 months. I stared at the folder. My name, Isabella Chen, owner. They knew, I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. They knew he would do this. They knew. Mr. Foster confirmed, his voice hard as steel. And they set a trap. A trap? Your uncle doesn't know this deed exists. He is operating under the assumption that this house is his to liquidate. In fact, Mr. Foster checked his expensive watch. My office confirmed this afternoon. Your uncle has already contacted a commercial real estate firm. He has an appointment tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to have this property appraised for immediate sale. He plans to use the proceeds to pay off his illegal $1.8 million loan before the bank seizes his business. My blood ran cold. He wasn't just kicking me out. He was planning to sell my grandfather's home, my home, to cover his own crimes. Mr. Foster handed me a small, heavy velvet box. "These are yours." I opened it. Inside, on a bed of black velvet, were 3 keys, 2 ornate antique keys and 1 modern electronic key fob. The driver opened my door. Mr. Foster led me to the small side gate. He entered a code and the gate swung open without a sound. We walked up the familiar stone path to the side door that led into my grandfather's study. "Go ahead," he said. My hand was shaking. I put the old brass key into the lock. It turned smooth as silk. The door clicked open. I stepped inside and I could breathe. The air was different. It smelled of old books and furniture polish, and the faint scent of my grandfather's cologne that always lingered in the curtains. It smelled like safety. It smelled like every weekend of my childhood. It smelled like love. This was the room where Grandpa taught me about investments. This was the kitchen down the hall where he let me help him cook elaborate dinners. This was the only place in the entire world I had never, not once, felt like a burden. I leaned my forehead against the cool, dark wood of the doorframe, and I finally cried. Not the hot, humiliated tears from my uncle's lawn. These were deep, shuddering sobs of pure relief. "They saved me," I whispered. "They're gone, but they still saved me." "They did," Mr. Foster said, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "And they made sure you would stay saved." Just as he said it, I heard the quiet sound of gravel in the main driveway. Headlights flashed across the front windows. My body went rigid. Fear spiked through me. Who is that? Is it him? Did he follow us? "It is not him," Mr. Foster said, his voice calm. "He is not invited. This is for you." I peered through the curtains. A large black SUV marked Elite Security Services had pulled up to the front steps. 2 people in professional uniforms got out. They were met by Mr. Foster's driver, who was carrying my suitcases and the black trash bag from the trunk. "That is the private security team your grandfather hired 4 months ago," Mr. Foster explained. "They have been on retainer, waiting. They will be stationed at both entrances 24 hours a day. They have a very specific list of individuals who are not permitted on this property. Your uncle, your aunt, your cousin, and his wife are at the very top of that list." He looked at me, his face serious, but with a flicker of pride in his eyes. "You are safe now, Isabella. This is your fortress. Let them come." Mr. Foster's driver carried my belongings into the grand foyer. They looked absurdly out of place, like second-hand items in a museum. The elite security guards were already taking positions at the gates. Mr. Foster turned to me. The protective anger in his face had softened into professional calm. "You should get some rest, Miss Chen," he said. "Go to your old room. I'm sure it's exactly as you left it." I clutched the leather folder containing the deed to my chest. "I can't rest," I whispered, the adrenaline still making me shake. "He's still out there. They won't just let this go. You heard my uncle. They are furious." "They are," Mr. Foster agreed, his voice hardening again. "And they are profoundly stupid. But most of all, Isabella, they are desperate. Your uncle is not just an angry man. He is a cornered animal. That $1.8 million loan I told you about, the one he secured illegally using your grandfather's business as collateral, the bank is calling that loan. He has 2 weeks. My blood ran cold. So he needs this house. He thinks he needs to liquidate this house," Mr. Foster corrected. "He truly believes he can walk in here, evict you, sell this estate for quick cash, and make his legal problems disappear. He has an appointment tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., with the premier real estate firm in the city." "He can't?" I gasped, looking around the beautiful, safe hallway. "He can't just sell it, can he? Legally?" "Absolutely not. This house is yours, free and clear," he said, tapping the folder I held. "But desperate men do not care about the law. They care about survival. He will show up tomorrow. He will make a scene. He will try to humiliate you publicly. He will probably bring police and claim you are the one trespassing." My stomach dropped. "What am I going to do?" "You," Mr. Foster said, "are going to stay inside your fortress. You will not answer the gate. The security team will handle any police. They have copies of the deed and my credentials. He gave me a thin, grim smile. "And I will be here at 9:45 a.m. sharp. And I will not be alone. You are not going to face them, Isabella. You are going to watch them." He bowed his head slightly. "Get some sleep. They have started a war they cannot possibly win. Tomorrow we show them why." He left. The heavy front door clicked shut with the satisfying finality of a bank vault. The silence of the house settled around me. It was not cold silence like at my uncle's house. This was warm, protective silence. I walked down the hall to my grandfather's study. I pushed open the heavy oak doors. The room was exactly as I remembered. It smelled of old books, leather, and the faint scent of his pipe tobacco. I ran my fingers along the spines of his business books. I sat in his massive, worn leather chair behind the desk, and I saw it. Sitting directly in the center of the polished wood was a single thick envelope. It was not dusty. It had been placed there recently. My name, Isabella, was written on the front in my grandfather's careful handwriting. My hands trembled as I picked it up and broke the wax seal. A folded letter was inside. "My dearest Isabella," I read aloud, my voice echoing in the quiet room. "If you are reading this, my dear, then I am gone. Do not let your grief overshadow your strength. I have lived a full life. My only regret is that I could not heal the poison in my son Robert." Tears blurred the words. I wiped them away. "I have watched you your entire life. I saw your quiet strength. I saw the light they tried so hard to extinguish. I knew you were the only one who understood my true values, the values of integrity, not greed. I have left you the $32 million. That is your shield. It will protect you. But money, Isabella, is just a tool. It is loud and clumsy. What I am leaving you is something far more powerful. I am leaving you the truth. Your uncle and cousin have become lost. Their greed has made them reckless. They believe they are the smartest men in the room. They believe they could outsmart the sick old man and the quiet young girl. They are wrong. Your real inheritance, my love, your weapon, is in the place I thought was most logical, and you always said was most beautiful. Use it. Do not be afraid. Do not let them bully you for one more second. Your entire life, you have been silent. Now, my sweet girl, it is time to speak your truth. I love you always, Grandpa Henry." My heart was hammering. Most logical and most beautiful. I looked around the study. My eyes landed on the massive built-in bookshelf, and I saw it. Tucked between his copies of The Intelligent Investor and Think and Grow Rich was a single fake book spine. Behind it, set into the wall, was a small digital safe. The combination. My mind raced. His birthday. My birthday. No. I remembered the date. The date my uncle tore up my Stanford letter. The date my grandfather secretly promised to help me anyway. I typed in the numbers. 06/15 to 2019. The safe clicked. A small green light flashed. I pulled the heavy door open. There was no cash, no jewelry. There was only a black leather journal and sitting on top of it, a single USB flash drive. I pulled the journal out. I opened it. The first page was in my grandfather's neat handwriting. It was a record. Dates, amounts, transfers. July 8th, $75,000 to Jason. Reason given. Business expansion. Real reason, covered cryptocurrency losses. August 15th, $125,000 to Jason. Reason given. Equipment purchase. Real reason, covered margin call. My stomach twisted. Page after page, Jason had taken over $400,000 from my grandfather. Then I turned to my uncle's section. It was worse, far worse. Copies of the $1.8 million loan agreement, copies of forged authorizations, printouts of bank statements. My grandfather had documented everything. He had built a perfect case of fraud. I picked up the USB drive. I looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. At 10 a.m., they would be here. They would be here to scream, to threaten, to call police, to try and destroy me in front of the neighbors. I held the journal in one hand and the USB in the other. They had no idea. They thought they were coming to intimidate a scared, homeless girl. I smiled. They were wrong. They were walking straight into their own destruction. I slept in my old room. the one with the pale blue walls and the big window where my grandfather used to read to me. I slept for 9 solid hours, a deep, dreamless, safe sleep. When I woke up, it was 9:15 a.m. I took a long, hot shower in the master bathroom with the rain shower and heated floors. I put on a clean pair of jeans and my grandfather's Stanford sweatshirt. I walked downstairs to the kitchen, made myself a cup of expensive coffee, and sat down at the security console in the study. I watched the high-definition feed from the cameras at the front gate. At 9:58 a.m. they arrived. It wasn't just one car, it was 3. First, my uncle's black Lexus, gleaming with arrogant confidence. Second, a white van with Premier Property Appraisal on the side. Third, a silver Tesla, Jason and Amanda. My Uncle Robert got out first. He was in an expensive navy suit, looking like the successful businessman he pretended to be. My Aunt Catherine emerged from the passenger side, her face set in triumphant vindication. Jason and Amanda spilled out of the Tesla, Amanda already filming with her phone. 3 men in matching polo shirts got out of the van. They were carrying clipboards, measuring devices, and a tablet for digital documentation. My family, here to claim their victory. Robert strode to the intercom at the gate, his entourage behind him. He pressed the buzzer. The sound echoed softly in the quiet study. I just sipped my coffee. He pressed it again, longer this time, jamming his thumb against it. He looked up at the house, his brow furrowing with impatience. He turned and nodded curtly to the appraisers. "Go ahead and start measuring the perimeter. I'll get us inside in a moment." One of the appraisers walked to the ornate iron gate. "I don't know, sir," he called back to my uncle. "This is a high-security electronic lock. We can't just override it." Robert's face darkened with annoyance. This was my cue. I picked up my coffee mug, walked through the study to the grand foyer, and up the curved staircase. At the top, I walked to the set of French doors that led to the stone balcony. It was directly above the front entrance, a perfect theater box. I pushed the doors open and stepped into the cool morning air. I looked down at them, all 6 of them, like a queen surveying confused peasants. Catherine saw me first. Her mouth fell open. Her face, which had been set in smug victory, contorted into a mask of pure hatred. "You!" she shrieked, her voice cracking and echoing in the quiet, wealthy neighborhood. "What are you doing in my house? Get out! Get out of my house right now!" My uncle, Jason, and Amanda all snapped their heads up. Their faces were a perfect portrait of shock and rage. Robert recovered first. He pointed a thick, furious finger up at me. "She's trespassing," he yelled, not to me, but to the appraisers. "That girl is my niece. She's mentally unstable and has been disowned. She broke into my property." He waved at the gate. "Don't just stand there. I'm the owner. I'm hiring you to access this property. Do whatever you have to do." The appraisers looked at each other, then at me, then back at my uncle. They looked deeply uncomfortable. "That's right," Amanda screamed, her phone aimed directly at my face. "We're live streaming this, you psycho. Everyone is going to see this. We're recording you, the crazy girl who's breaking into her dead grandfather's house. You are finished, Isabella." She turned the camera to her own face briefly. "Everyone, my sister-in-law is having a complete mental breakdown. She's dangerous." Jason stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "Game over, Isabella. You really thought you could beat us? You're just a stupid girl who got lucky. We're having you arrested. You're going to jail, and then to a mental institution, and then he gestured to his father, will finally take control of the money like we were supposed to." The appraisers looked even more nervous. "Sir," one of them said to my uncle, "if she's in the house, this sounds like a family dispute. We can't just force entry." "I said do your job," Robert roared, his face turning a dangerous purple. "I am paying you. Do it, or I'll sue your company." The 3 men exchanged worried looks. One of them sighed, and they turned back to the gate, clearly reluctant. I just stood there. I watched them. I said nothing. I took another slow, calm sip of my coffee. They looked so small from up here. One of the appraisers approached the lock with a device. The metal beeped as he tried to override it. I lowered my coffee cup. My voice in the cool morning air was surprisingly loud. It carried. "I think you should stop." The appraiser paused. My Uncle Robert let out a bark of laughter. It was a horrible, ugly sound. "You think?" he mocked. "You think you can stop us? You, a pathetic girl in pajamas?" He spread his arms wide, a gesture of pure arrogance. "Who's going to stop me, Isabella? You and what army?" Right on cue, the heavy study door behind me clicked open. A deep, commanding voice cut through the air, a voice that vibrated with power and ice-cold authority. "I believe I will, Robert." I didn't turn. I had been waiting for him. Mr. Benjamin Foster stepped out onto the balcony, coming to a stop right beside me. He was the opposite of my uncle. Robert was loud, his suit was flashy, his anger was hot and messy. Mr. Foster was a pillar of quiet, deadly authority. He was in a flawless charcoal suit. He held a slim briefcase in one hand. He was tall, distinguished, and he looked down at my uncle with an expression of complete disdain. The reaction from below was instant. It was everything I had hoped for. Their faces froze in shock. My uncle's mouth, which had been open in mocking laughter, snapped shut. The blood drained from his face, leaving his skin a sickly gray. "Benjamin," he whispered. His voice was no longer a roar. It was the squeak of a trapped mouse. What are you doing here?" My Aunt Catherine let out a small, strangled gasp, her hand flying to her throat. Amanda stopped filming. Her phone wavered in her hand as she stared, her jaw slack. My cousin Jason just stammered, pointing a shaking finger. What is he doing here?" Mr. Foster ignored them all. He looked down, his gaze finding my uncle. "Robert," he said, and his voice was not a shout, but it carried to every corner of the property. "I am here in my capacity as legal counsel for my client, Miss Isabella Chen." My uncle flinched, but tried to recover, puffing out his chest. "Your client? She's my niece. She's mentally unstable. She's trespassing. This is my house. It's part of the Chen family trust. I am the executor of that trust, and I am ordering her removed." Mr. Foster just stared at him. He let the frantic, pathetic words hang in the air for a long, humiliating moment. Then he spoke. "You are mistaken, Robert. On all counts, but especially," he said, "about the house." He placed his briefcase on the stone railing and clicked it open. "The family trust," he said, his voice dripping with condescension, "is irrelevant, because this house is not in it." He pulled out a thick legal document, sealed and ribboned by the county. "This," he said, holding it up so they could all see the official seals, "is a fully executed, notarized, and recorded property deed." He let his gaze travel from Robert to Catherine to Jason. 4 months ago, before his tragic death, Henry Chen, being of sound mind and body, legally transferred 100% ownership of this property, this house, this land, and all its contents, directly to Miss Isabella Chen. He turned the document so my uncle could read the header. "She," Mr. Foster declared, his voice rising, "is the sole legal and undisputed owner of this property. It has been in her name for 4 months. He folded the document, his movements slow and deliberate. "Which means," he said, his eyes narrowing into slits of ice as he pointed down at my uncle, "that you are trespassing." The word hit my uncle like a physical blow. He staggered back a step, his hands clenched at his sides. No, that's impossible. That's forgery." The old man was senile. "He wouldn't." "He did," Mr. Foster said, cutting him off. "And now I want you to turn your attention to the gentleman you have hired." My uncle's head snapped to the appraisers. The 3 men had frozen completely, one still holding his override device. Mr. Foster's voice dropped to a level that was even more terrifying. It was pure legal ice. "Gentlemen," he said, "you are currently being filmed by no fewer than 8 high-definition security cameras. You are at this moment attempting to aid and abet criminal trespass, property damage, and attempted breaking and entering of a private residence." He leaned forward slightly. "I am Benjamin Foster, senior partner at Foster, Williams & Associates. If you do not drop that device, Get in your van and leave this property in the next 15 seconds. I will personally ensure that you are arrested for conspiracy, and I will have your business license revoked by end of business today." The reaction was immediate. The man with the device dropped it as if it were on fire. It hit the pavement with a loud clang that echoed in the stunning silence. We didn't know, sir," one of them stammered, holding his hands up. "He said it was his house. He said she was a problem. We're leaving. We're leaving right now," another one said. They didn't even bother to pick up their expensive equipment. They turned, practically ran back to their van, threw themselves inside, and slammed the doors. The engine roared to life. The van squealed in reverse, did a frantic three-point turn, and sped off down the quiet street. They left their device lying on the ground, a useless piece of metal. Mr. Foster straightened his tie. He looked down at my family, who were still standing there, completely defeated. "Now," he said, "about your appointment with the real estate firm." Just as the appraisal van disappeared, another set of lights appeared at the end of the tree-lined street. 2 police cruisers, their blue lights silently revolving, pulled up and parked directly behind my uncle's Lexus, effectively boxing him in. The neighbors were definitely watching now. I saw curtains twitching in houses across the street. An elderly woman walking her dog had stopped to stare openly. This was an exclusive neighborhood. Public family disputes were not on the agenda. This was ultimate humiliation. 2 officers got out, their hands resting on their belts. Mr. Foster, still on the balcony, simply raised a hand. "Good morning, officers," he called out, his voice perfectly pleasant. "Thank you for the prompt response. I believe the trespassers were just leaving." "Trespassers?" one of the officers called back, looking at my uncle. My Aunt Catherine looked like she was going to be physically sick. Her hand was at her throat, her face pale. This was her worst nightmare, being seen as common criminals in this neighborhood. Amanda had finally put her phone away, her face a mask of horrified disbelief. My Uncle Robert stood there, trembling. He was trapped. The police were behind him, his lawyer was in front of him, and I was above him, holding all the power. He had lost, and he had lost publicly. He looked up at me, his face a grotesque combination of purple rage and absolute powerlessness. He couldn't scream. He couldn't hit. He couldn't issue orders. All his tools were gone. So he just pointed. His finger trembled violently in the air, aimed straight at me. "You!" he seethed, his voice a low, venomous hiss that barely carried. "You think you're smart? You think you've won? You are not finished with me. This is not over, Isabella. You will pay for this." It was a pathetic, empty threat from a defeated man. I looked down at him, at this man who had terrorized me my entire life. I felt nothing. No fear, no pity, just an ending. I leaned forward slightly, resting my hands on the cool stone railing. "Oh, I know it's not over, Uncle Robert," I said, and my cold, clear voice carried across the lawn. "I haven't even started yet." A shiver went through him. He had no idea what that meant, but he knew it was true. The police officer took a step toward him. "Sir, is there a problem here? We received a report that you were attempting to forcibly enter a property that doesn't belong to you." That was the final straw. Robert let out a strangled sound of pure frustration. He turned, yanking at his suit jacket, and stormed back to his Lexus. "Catherine! Jason! Get in the car! Now!" My family didn't walk. They scrambled. They fell over themselves to get into the car, their heads down in shame. My uncle peeled out of the driveway, humiliated and defeated, with 2 police cars watching him go. The street was quiet again. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Mr. Foster turned to me, a look of profound satisfaction on his face. He closed his briefcase. "That," he said, "was part 1. He turned and looked back into the study, where I had left the black journal and USB drive sitting on my grandfather's desk. "Now," Mr. Foster said, a grim smile touching his lips, "it's time to use your grandfather's secret weapon." We went back inside. The heavy doors closed, shutting out the world. The police cars drove away. The quiet, humiliated street returned to its peaceful state. I was still shaking, but it was a different kind of shaking now. It was the vibration of power. "He called me a pathetic girl in pajamas," I whispered, looking down at my jeans and sweatshirt. "You are," Mr. Foster said, walking past me into the study. "The most dangerous person he has ever met. He just doesn't know the full extent of it yet." I followed him into my grandfather's office. The room felt like a command center. I sat in the large leather chair behind the desk. It felt like it finally belonged to me. Mr. Foster stood in front of the desk, all business. "What he just experienced," he said, "was humiliation. What comes next is annihilation. Your grandfather, Isabella, was meticulous. Part 1 was the shield, the house, securing your safety." He tapped the black journal and USB drive that I had left on the desk. "This," he said, "is the sword." I opened the black journal. My grandfather's perfect, precise handwriting filled the pages. It wasn't just numbers. It was a story of betrayal. Mr. Foster walked me through it, though I had read it all night. "Part 1. Your cousin Jason," he said, pointing to the first section. "Your grandfather gave him seed money for business investments. What he discovered was that Jason was investing in cryptocurrency day trading and losing spectacularly." I looked at the entries. July 8th, $75,000. Reason given, business expansion. Real reason, covered crypto losses from leveraged Bitcoin position. Page after page, he had taken over $400,000 in less than 18 months. "Jason is a thief and a gambling addict," I whispered. It felt strange to say it out loud. "He's a fool," Mr. Foster corrected. "A greedy, foolish boy. Your uncle is something else entirely. He is a predator." He turned the page to the next section. Part 2. Your Uncle Robert. My grandfather hadn't just written notes. He had included supporting documents. "As you told him on the lawn," Mr. Foster said, "your uncle's business is failing. It is $1.8 million in debt. What you didn't tell him is that we know how he got that loan." He pointed to a document. It was a loan agreement from Wells Fargo. At the bottom was a signature, Henry Chen. "That," Mr. Foster said, "is a forgery, and a clumsy one. Robert forged your grandfather's signature, illegally pledging your grandfather's business as collateral for his own failing company." My stomach turned to ice. "So, when the bank calls the loan, when Robert defaults, which he will," Mr. Foster finished, "the bank will not only seize his company, they will discover the forgery. He is not just looking at bankruptcy, Isabella. He is looking at federal prison for bank fraud and identity theft." It all clicked. That's why he was so desperate for the $32 million. "It was never about Jason's Tesla," Mr. Foster said, his voice heavy. "It was never about expanding the family business. It was about survival. He was going to use your inheritance to pay back his illegal $1.8 million loan, hiding his crime completely." He looked at me, his eyes full of cold, hard anger. "He wasn't just trying to take your money, Isabella. He was trying to use you as a get-out-of-jail-free card. He would have drained that $32 million and left you with nothing, just like he did to his own father." I felt sick. I looked at the black journal, this record of my family's crimes. "The journal is the evidence," I said. "It's the proof. The journal," Mr. Foster said, "is the hammer." He picked up the small USB flash drive. "Your grandfather left you the nail." He plugged the drive into the computer on the desk. "Your grandfather was suspicious of Robert's weekly business meetings with Jason, so he did what any smart man would do. He installed a voice-activated recorder in the ventilation system of this very office. He clicked on the first file, dated just 3 weeks before my grandfather's death. A voice filled the room. It was my cousin Jason. "I'm telling you, Dad, I need another $100,000, or I'm going to lose everything. The margin calls are killing me." Then my uncle's voice, cold and calculating. "You idiot. You think I'm made of money? The old man is watching every penny. He and that Isabella, they're looking at everything." My breath caught. "We just need to hold on," my uncle's voice continued. "The loan is due on the 30th. The old man's health is failing. It's just a matter of time. As soon as he's gone, all that money comes to us. The $32 million, I'll pay off the bank. You cover your trading losses, and that useless girl Isabella gets nothing. She'll be out on the street where she belongs. What about the signatures? Are you sure you can? I've been practicing for months. Let's run through it again. Mr. Foster stopped the recording. I couldn't speak. They hadn't just been stealing. They had been waiting for him to die, plotting to throw me out the second he was gone. I looked at Mr. Foster. The sick, weak feeling was gone, replaced by cold, hard resolve. They didn't just walk into a trap, I said. They built it themselves. The recording stopped. The heavy silence of the study returned, feeling 1,000 times more toxic than before. They had been waiting. They had been waiting for my grandfather to die, annoyed that it was taking too long, plotting to steal everything while he was struggling in the hospital. I felt a coldness so deep it burned. Mr. Foster, a man I had only seen as calm and collected, was pale with rage that made his hands tremble. He snapped the laptop shut. That, he said, his voice a low, dangerous growl, is conspiracy to commit fraud. And that is where I draw the line. He pulled his smartphone from his breast pocket, his movements sharp and angry. I am calling the district attorney. I have his direct number. With this audio recording and that journal, Robert and Jason will be in handcuffs before sunset. His thumb hovered over the contact. No, I said. My voice was quiet, but it stopped him cold. He looked up, his face confused. Miss Chen, Isabella, did you not just hear what I heard? These men, your uncle and cousin, they plotted this. This is not a family dispute. This is criminal conspiracy. I know exactly what I heard, I said. I stood up from my grandfather's desk, the black journal in my hand. And I know my family. If we call the police right now, do you know what happens? My uncle screams that he was set up. My Aunt Catherine goes on a campaign. She tells every neighbor, every relative, that her poor, troubled niece forged documents and manufactured evidence to steal the family money. I walked to the window looking out at the safe, beautiful grounds. They will drag my grandfather's name through the mud. They will lie. They will cry. They will play the victim. And they are very, very good at playing the victim. No, I continued. I will not allow them to spin this. I will not allow them to make me the villain in their story. I turned back to him, the USB drive feeling heavy in my palm. I don't want them arrested by the police. Not yet. I want them to know. Mr. Foster was listening, his eyes sharp, the phone still in his hand. Know what, Isabella? I want them to know who beat them. I want to see the look on their faces when they realize that the stupid, quiet girl they plan to throw on the street is the one holding the evidence that will send them both to prison. A slow, dangerous understanding dawned on Mr. Foster's face. What are you proposing? My uncle is a bully, I said. He's humiliated, but right now he's also terrified. He's a cornered animal. He still thinks he can negotiate with me. He still believes he can scare me or manipulate me into giving him a piece of the $32 million to solve his $1.8 million problem. I picked up the phone on my grandfather's desk. So let's give him the meeting he's so desperate for. Here? Mr. Foster asked. I'll have the security team escort him in. No, I said, cutting him off. Not here. This is my fortress. This is my safe place. I want to go to him. I want to do this in his territory. In that pathetic, failing office of his, the one that's about to be seized by the bank. I want him to sit in his cheap chair behind his fake desk and feel powerful right up until the second I take it all away. Mr. Foster's thin smile returned. It was the smile of a predator. A corporate execution? A family reckoning, I corrected. Call him, Mr. Foster. Tell him his ungrateful niece is ready to discuss terms. The Chen Import Solutions office was exactly as I remembered. A depressing suite in a failing strip mall, squeezed between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. The air inside was stale, smelling of cheap coffee and desperation. It was a pathetic stage for a man pretending to be successful. They were all there, arranged like a court. My Uncle Robert sat behind his oversized fake wood desk, leaning back in his creaking chair, trying to project authority. My Aunt Catherine sat in a chair against the wall, filing her nails with calculated boredom. On the cheap vinyl couch, my cousin Jason and his wife Amanda were whispering. They both smirked when I walked in. They had regrouped. They had convinced themselves that my victory at the gate was a temporary tantrum. They genuinely believed I was here, broken and scared, to surrender. Mr. Foster stayed by the door, a silent, watchful guardian. "Well, well," Robert said, spreading his hands wide, a grin splitting his face. "Look who finally came to her senses. Took you long enough, Isabella. Did you enjoy playing princess in that big house all alone for one night?" Catherine chimed in, her voice dripping with fake concern. "It's so lonely in that big old place, isn't it, sweetie? All that responsibility. See? We were right. You need your family. I'm glad you're finally ready to be reasonable," Robert continued, lacing his fingers together. "That performance this morning was very dramatic, but it was childish. You've made your little point. Now it's time for the adults to handle the real money, the real business." He leaned forward, his face a mask of false generosity. "So here is my final, very generous offer. We'll call it a family reconciliation package. You sign the asset management papers. You transfer the $32 million into the family trust. I, of course, will manage it properly." He paused for effect. "And as a sign of my good faith, we will let you keep $8 million all to yourself, free and clear. Plus the house, of course. You can live there. It's a very, very good deal. Frankly, it's more than you deserve after the embarrassment you caused us this morning." $8 million, Amanda whispered to Jason, her eyes wide with excitement. Oh my God, he's being so generous to her. I just stood there. I looked at Robert's lying face. I looked at Catherine's cruel indifference. I looked at Amanda's greedy stupidity. I said nothing. I walked forward, my heels clicking on the cheap laminate floor. I was carrying the new briefcase Mr. Foster had given me that morning. My uncle watched me, his smug smile unwavering, assuming I was about to produce the papers he demanded. I reached the desk. I looked him dead in the eye. I opened the briefcase. Instead of papers, I pulled out the heavy black journal. I placed it on his desk. It landed with a solid, definitive thud. The sound was too loud in the cheap, quiet office. Robert's smile wavered. "What's this? Your diary? More of your childish games?" Catherine scoffed. "Really, Isabella." Then I reached back into the briefcase. I pulled out the small USB flash drive. I placed it right next to the journal. A small, sharp click. My uncle and aunt just looked confused. But Jason was staring at the journal. His face had gone rigid. He knew that book. He had seen that book. He had seen our grandfather write in it, right after Jason had been forced to beg for money to cover his trading losses. He knew exactly what it was. The color drained from his face. The arrogant smirk vanished, replaced by sick, pale terror. "Where?" he stammered, his voice suddenly high-pitched. "Where did you get that?" "What?" Robert said, annoyed. "What is it, Jason? It's just some old book." I finally spoke. My voice was cold and clear, cutting through the stale air. "He recognizes it," I said. "Don't you, Jason? You recognize Grandpa's real accounting." "He recognizes it," I repeated, my voice like ice, "because he was there when Grandpa wrote in it. Weren't you, Jason? Right after you came crying for $75,000 to cover your crypto losses?" Jason began to hyperventilate. No, I don't know what you're talking about." Oh, I think you do," I said. I reached into my briefcase one last time. I pulled out a small, sleek black speaker. I set it on the desk right between the journal and the USB drive. Robert looked at the speaker, completely bewildered. "What is this? More toys? Are you going to play us music, Isabella? This is pathetic. I gave you a generous $8 million offer. Now you sign the papers, or we are done here." "You're right, Uncle Robert," I said. "I'm going to play you something. A little recording Grandpa liked to call the truth." I plugged the USB drive into the speaker. I pressed the power button. A small blue light blinked. I hit play. The stale, cheap air of the office was suddenly filled with the crystal-clear recorded voices of my uncle and cousin. It was the recording from my grandfather's study. Jason's voice. "I'm telling you, Dad. I need another $100,000, or I'm going to lose everything. The margin calls are killing me." My Aunt Catherine froze. Her nail file stopped mid-stroke. "What is that?" she whispered. Robert's voice. "You idiot. You think I'm made of money? The old man is watching every penny. He and that Isabella, they're looking at everything." Catherine let out a tiny, strangled gasp. "Robert?" Jason's voice. "What are we going to do? What about the $1.8 million loan? The bank called again. They're talking about an audit." Robert's voice. "Calm down. We just need to hold on. The old man's health is failing. It's just a matter of time. As soon as he's gone, all that money comes to us. The $32 million I'll pay off the bank, you cover your losses, and that useless girl Isabella gets nothing. She'll be out on the street where she belongs. Now let's practice the signatures again. We have to get this right." The recording clicked off. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of a tomb. Tiffany's face was a mask of utter confusion. She was looking at Jason, her eyes wide. What signatures? Jason, what is he talking about?" Catherine was staring at her husband, her face pale, her mouth open in shock. "Robert, you waited. You forged." Robert was no longer moving. He was a statue. The smugness, the anger, the arrogance, all of it was gone, burned away by pure terror. He stared at the small black speaker as if it were a bomb that had just exploded in his hands. Finally, he moved. It wasn't words. It was a roar. A desperate animal sound of a trapped creature. "No!" He lunged across the desk, his hands clawing not at me, but at the speaker. He was going to smash it. He was going to destroy the evidence. He never made it. Mr. Foster, who had been silent by the door, stepped forward and put his entire body between my uncle and the desk. He didn't touch him. He just stood there, a human wall of expensive tailoring and absolute authority. "I wouldn't do that, Robert," Mr. Foster said, his voice dangerously calm. Robert recoiled as if he'd hit solid rock. He was breathing in great, ragged gasps, his eyes wild, darting from the speaker to me to Mr. Foster. "That's a fake," he screamed, his voice cracking. It's AI. She manufactured it. That's not me. That's not my voice." "It is your voice," I said, my own voice cutting through his panic. "And it's Jason's voice. It was recorded in Grandpa's study 3 weeks before he died. Grandpa was very thorough." I picked up the black journal. I opened it. "Let's review," I said, my voice cold, hard, and final. I was no longer the girl in the cheap blazer. I was the one in charge. Jason Chen. My cousin flinched like I had struck him. Over $400,000 in loans from Grandpa Henry, except they weren't loans. They were wire transfers to cover cryptocurrency trading losses and margin calls. "That isn't borrowing, Jason. That's called embezzlement." Amanda let out a high-pitched squeak. 400,000? I turned the page. "And then there's you, Uncle Robert." I looked him dead in the eye. $1.8 million business loan from Wells Fargo. A loan that your failing company could never have qualified for on its own. So you didn't apply on your own. I tapped the journal. You applied by forging Grandpa Henry's signature, illegally pledging his business as collateral, a business you had no right to touch. That isn't business, Uncle Robert. That is bank fraud. A federal offense. I closed the journal. Your generous offer of $8 million. It wasn't generous, I said, the pieces of my rage fitting together perfectly. It was desperate. You weren't trying to reconcile. You were trying to use my inheritance to pay back your $1.8 million fraudulent loan before the bank audits you in. I glanced at my expensive new watch. 12 days. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper. You were going to steal from me to cover up the fact that you stole from him. I stood back up to my full height. You're not looking at a negotiation, I declared, my voice ringing with all the power they had tried to beat out of me. You're not looking at a reconciliation fee. You, I pointed at Jason. And you, I pointed at Robert, are both looking at a minimum of 10 to 20 years each in federal prison. In that moment, all the air left the chief office. The phrase federal prison hung in the stale air, thick and poisonous. The silence was broken not by my uncle, not by Jason. It was broken by Amanda. She shot up from the vinyl couch, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Her face was no longer confused. It was a mask of pure panic and disgust. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring at her husband, Jason. "Criminal?" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "You told me your family was rich. You told me you were a business genius. And you're a common thief. 400,000 bank fraud." Jason cowered, holding up a hand. "Amanda, baby, I can explain. It's not what it sounds like." "Explain?" she screamed, backing away from him, grabbing her expensive handbag. "I am not going to jail for you. I am not going to jail for this disgusting family. You think I'm going to stand by a failed con artist? You think I'm going to have children with someone who's going to prison?" She looked at me, then at Robert, then back at Jason, her eyes filled with venom. "I'm done. I'm calling my lawyer. The divorce papers will be served to whatever federal prison you're about to be sent to." She stormed out of the office, slamming the door so hard the entire wall shook. Her heels clicked frantically down the hallway, and then went silent. And just like that, Jason's last supporter was gone. My cousin, the golden child, made a choked, gasping sound. He slid off the vinyl couch. He didn't fall. He just deflated. He crumpled onto the dirty carpet, put his face in his hands, and began to sob. Deep, heaving, pathetic sobs of a spoiled child who had finally been caught. My Uncle Robert was still motionless, frozen, a hollow statue. He wasn't looking at me. He wasn't looking at Jason. He was staring at the black journal on his desk, as if it were a snake that had just delivered a fatal bite. All the power, the arrogance, the rage, it was all gone, replaced by the empty, terrified shell of a failed old man. Seeing her husband and golden son completely broken, my Aunt Catherine turned to her last weapon: guilt. She rushed toward me, not with anger, but with her hands clasped as if in prayer. The fake tears began instantly. "Isabella, baby. Please, sweetie. We're family." Her voice was wet and desperate. "You can't do this to your uncle and your cousin. They made mistakes, but they love you. You can't destroy your family like this. Think of the family honor. Please, Isabella." I just looked at her. The woman who had stood in the doorway just yesterday, calling me worthless and kicking me out. "Honor?" I said, my voice like stone. "This family's honor died a long time ago. You all killed it." I took one step back, pulling away from her desperate, grasping hands. "You chose greed, you chose lies, and you chose to throw me on the street." I looked at her, at my frozen uncle, and at my sobbing cousin. This isn't me destroying the family. This is the family finally facing what it destroyed all by itself. My aunt's desperate plea hung in the air, a final, pathetic attempt to control me. I looked at her, at the woman who had only ever seen me as a burden, now begging me to save the very people who had tried to destroy me. I turned and looked at Mr. Foster. He was waiting for my signal. "Mr. Foster," I said, my voice clear and final. "You were right. Calling the district attorney is the correct legal move." I paused, looking back at my uncle, who was still frozen, and my cousin, who was a pathetic heap on the floor. "But I am not my uncle," I said. "I am not my aunt. I will not be needlessly cruel. I will not be the one to send them to prison." I let that hang in the air. A small flicker of desperate hope sparked in my uncle's dead eyes. "Not today, at least." I looked back at Robert. "I am going to give you a choice, not a negotiation, a choice." Mr. Foster, understanding my play, stepped forward and placed a thick stack of documents on the desk, right on top of the black journal. "This," I said, "is your one and only path forward. It's not a good one, but it's better than federal prison. You have two options. Option A," I said, "is that I do nothing. I pick up my journal and my USB drive. Mr. Foster and I walk out that door. And before 6 p.m. today, a full copy of this evidence will be on the desk of the district attorney, the IRS, and the FBI. You, Uncle Robert, will be arrested for bank fraud. You, Jason, will be arrested for embezzlement. You will both lose everything. You will go to prison for a very long time. And I will sleep just fine. I let that sink in. Catherine made a small choking sound. Or, I continued, option B. I tapped the new stack of papers. You sign these right here, right now. No negotiations, no changes. What is it? My uncle whispered, his voice a dry rasp. It is your unconditional surrender, I said. 1. You, Robert, will immediately resign as CEO of Chen Import Solutions. You will transfer full ownership of the company, its assets, and all its debts, including the $1.8 million fraudulent loan, to me. I will liquidate this pathetic company to pay back the bank. You will walk away with nothing. 2, I said, turning to my cousin. You, Jason, will sign papers agreeing to enter a 90-day inpatient gambling addiction treatment facility. Today, Mr. Foster's car is waiting. After that, you will get a job, a real one. I don't care if it's flipping burgers. You will never see a dime of my money again. And 3, I said, looking at both of them. You will both sign a legally binding document renouncing any and all current or future claims to the estate of Henry Chen. You will renounce any claim to my $32 million. You will renounce any claim to my house. You will legally agree to never contact me again for any financial reason whatsoever. You'd leave us with nothing? Catherine finally shrieked, her voice full of venom again. You'd liquidate the company? That's your uncle's life's work. His life's work, I snapped, was fraud built on my grandfather's money. This is my offer. Take it or leave it. You have... I checked my watch. 1 minute to decide before I call the FBI myself. My uncle looked at the papers. He looked at his sobbing son. He looked at his horrified wife. He knew he was beaten. The fight was gone. Slowly, his hand shaking so violently he could barely hold the pen, he reached forward. He uncapped it and signed the first page. Then he pushed the papers to Jason. Jason, his face streaked with tears, looked at the document, then at me. He signed it. His signature a pathetic scribble. They signed every single page. Mr. Foster stepped forward, collected the documents, and placed them neatly in his briefcase. He snapped it shut. I turned and walked to the door. I didn't look back. Isabella, wait. My aunt pleaded one last time. I paused at the door. You were right about one thing, Aunt Catherine, I said without turning around. We are finished. Then I walked out, and I never saw them again. 1 year later, I stood on the same balcony where I had confronted my family. But it wasn't just a house anymore. The gates were open. The grounds were filled with people. Music drifted up from the patio. I looked up at elegant brass letters above the door. A new sign gleamed in the twilight. The Henry Chen Center for Youth Excellence. I had kept my $32 million. I had also kept my promise. I used the money to turn my fortress into a sanctuary for young people like I had been, kids with potential that no one believed in. My uncle's company was liquidated. I paid off the $1.8 million loan, satisfying the bank and keeping my grandfather's name clean. Robert and Catherine lost their house. They now live in a small rental across town. My aunt, I'm told, calls distant relatives complaining about her cruel, ungrateful niece. Most of them have stopped taking her calls. Jason completed his treatment. He works the night shift at a warehouse. Amanda, of course, divorced him. She tried to sue me for emotional damages. The case was dismissed in 10 minutes. I looked out at the gathering. Young students, artists, and entrepreneurs, all laughing, all dreaming. Mr. Foster was there, smiling, a glass of wine in his hand. I thought about the black journal, now locked away forever. I thought about the $32 million, now hard at work changing lives. I realized my victory was never about the money. It wasn't even about the house. My victory was protecting the legacy. My grandfather had believed in integrity. He had believed in truth. My family had tried to poison that legacy with their greed and lies. I didn't just save the money, I saved his name. I thought about my grandfather's letter. It is time to speak your truth. I looked out at the new generation of young people, all flourishing in this house built on honesty. I smiled. I had spoken my truth. And finally, the whole world was listening. The lesson from this story is that your worth is never defined by those who try to diminish you. Isabella's family saw her as a worthless burden, but her grandfather recognized her true integrity. He didn't just leave her money as a shield. He left her the truth as a sword. This story proves that bullies, even in your own family, only hold the power you allow them to have. True strength isn't inheriting a fortune. It's finding the courage to expose painful reality, reclaim your own narrative, and use that power to protect the legacy of those who truly loved you. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who underestimated you? Share your story in the comments below.